is Maria Fisher, the host of Conversations in the Den, and here is my co-host Jennifer Wolfenden.
Hello, everybody.
Today, our topic has changed today because our guest speaker is extremely busy working on a project and was unable to join us. So today we will be talking about stroke again, but today we'll be talking about stroke relationships after stroke.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Jennifer?
Oh gosh, relationships after stroke. Maria, don't you find that was one of the absolute hurdles after having a stroke?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's like I feel like that's a huge part that we have to face right after stroke. It's, we have this trauma, and then right after the trauma, in our face is relationships. It's relationships with your spouse, your partner,
your family,
significant other, your family, your children, your parents, your siblings. I think one of the things I find really, really difficult is that people don't get that we're still in there, and there was a woman that's called Jill Bolte Taylor, and she wrote a tiny, tiny little book called My Stroke of Insight. And I remember the summer, I had my stroke in May, and in the summertime, in July, my girlfriend, she normally goes to the cottage, and she had said to me, I really want to learn about you. I want to learn how to be your friend now. Mm-hmm. Things have changed because a lot of other people hadn't said that. And I said to her, called my stroke insight, and she would call me a week later or 2 weeks later, and she said, I rented that book from the library, the recorded version. And she said, I listened to it on my drive there. And she says, I get you. And, she's one of the friends that have stayed. Her name, she's just amazing. She has stayed for all these 10 years, but a lot of people have fallen off, and not, for me, not in a very bad way. Sometimes when you go through seasons of life, you can't take everybody with you. And also not everybody wants to come. Not everybody wants to come with. A lot of people don't want to deal with brain damaged people. A lot of people see us as an inconvenience.
Oh, absolutely. I found after initially after my stroke that my social life completely diminished. I had, but as time progressed, the people who stayed were the people who were there, who were the people that really were genuinely there for me, who had always been there for me. The people who left were kind of there or not there. I was sometimes including in their lives, sometimes I was not. But It was very difficult initially because I was used to having a social life. So, but now, because of the lack of accessibility, and I was in a wheelchair initially, because of the lack of accessibility, people didn't know what to do with me. So they didn't know, and they never asked.
Yes.
And that was the most challenging thing, is people were not asking. And then what would happen is I would, because of being on Facebook, I would later on see pictures of people out socializing, and I would be hurt. I would be heartbroken, because I would feel like, why would they just leave me out and not even say, Maria, we're doing this, and give me the option of choosing whether or not I wanted to go. I also had a folding wheelchair, so it could fit in anybody's trunk. So there was no reason why I could not go. And my girlfriend still takes me to the mall. The same, my girlfriend Shauna has supported me from the beginning of this stroke, and to this day, she will take me to the mall. We will get a wheelchair and we'll just wheel around just like we were shopping before. And I'm so appreciative of her for that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we will even go and get a coffee. Just simple things. But people it's like they just think, they leave you sitting and they think that all you want to do is stay in bed or stay side. And I understand that there are some people that do that.
Yeah.
You know, there are some people who the stroke has shamed them in some way, and they don't want to recover. They don't
Yeah.
want to see people. They don't want to go anywhere. And I understand that that is the case. But for
Yes.
me, who has always been a social person, it was extremely challenging to see my friends socializing without me.
Yes. I agree. I totally agree. I think in the first months following my stroke,
Mhm.
I couldn't see people for more than about a half hour. And the reason
Oh,
for that,
okay.
that, I was struggling with fatigue. My brain needed recovery. Noise was bothering me. Too much stimulation was bothering me. And so, but the thing about it, I would give my family instructions and I'd say, everybody can visit, but only one a day. They must visit for 20 minutes and then they have to say goodbye so I can go and nap. And
Hmm.
so people started respecting that rule. And so they would
Yes.
come, they would
See, I
visit for
didn't.
20 minutes.
Sorry,
And so,
go ahead.
no, no, and then they would say goodbye for 10 minutes. And so in a half hour, they would be gone. And so people that really wanted to, and that's where you see the people that would journey with, because
Absolutely.
you're seeing patience in them. You're seeing accepting the half hour visit. You're seeing them getting come and taking you to the mall. You're seeing them when they phone and you can't talk for more than 10 minutes. You see them respecting that and go and saying, you know what, I'm going to hang up right now so you can go and lie down. And those people have journeyed with me in the last 10 years. The,
Yes.
the others who weren't able to accept or journey with me because, their lives were busy,
Hmm.
um, they didn't have the patience to journey with me. Um, I had actually family members just say to me, you look fine. I think you're faking it.
Okay. Um, well, I didn't have that, but I did have people, like I said, not include me. I also had people who would see me, and because they knew me from my days of being an athlete and things of that nature, they would cry. Like, so they would come to see me and then they would just cry. And that would just break my heart. Like, I'm still here, I'm still the same person.
Yeah,
I'm not, I never had the issues that you had, Jennifer. I had no fatigue issues. Had no. My only issues was my left side deficit, which was my walking,
yeah,
basically, and using my left hand. And those were my two deficiencies. Everything else, I've always had the same sense of humor. I've always been the same jovial person. I've not been an I've never been a napper, and I did not become a napper. Um, I was actually the exact same person, but
yeah,
people didn't ask me.
yeah.
They didn't come and say, Maria, are you able? We're doing this. Are you able to come? Or it's like they just didn't want to be around me, and that's what hurt me.
And
I felt like I was discarded.
and that is every stroke survivor, not just you. That is every stroke
Yes,
survivor,
I know.
because people just all of a sudden we're damaged goods and we're not worth the time of day. And I think what one of the things that people don't understand, I call them whole brainers. People that have never had a brain injury, I call them whole brainers. And one of the things whole brainers don't understand is that inside there, like you said earlier, we're still there. We're still the same person. However, we're slower to talk, we're slower to comprehend, and we might not join in all of the conversations because we don't find our words as quickly as they do. But we're still there. And that's one of the things Jill Bolte Taylor talks about in her book, My Stroke of Insight. And she said, this is a woman now, she's a neurologist. And so she was doing research. Now, when she had her stroke, her mother was in a different state in the States.
Oh,
And she said in the weeks following, she said the doctors, the residents, the nurses would talk to her like she doesn't exist. And so she got frustrated because she's like, I'm still here. I'm still in there. I'm still smart. I still know what I'm doing. I still want to talk, but my words they're not coming as quickly as you want them to come. Don't talk to me like I'm stupid. And so this is all things that she was thinking, but it wouldn't come out of her mouth. No, don't forget,
Oh, okay.
this woman has got letters behind her name, smart as a tack, but she had a stroke. And that's what disqualified her from respect in the medical world as she was recovering. But she recounts this absolutely amazing little piece of her life in the hospital. And she says her mother, she's an only child, I think. No, I think she has a brother. And her mother comes, and her mother does this absolutely sweet thing. She pulled the covers off of her. She slides into the hospital bed with her and spoons her, wraps her arms around her, and just let her weep. And I was like, her mother knew that she couldn't articulate words, but her mother knew that if she would curl up behind her and fold her into her arms, it's speaking. And so,
sorry, I think people don't understand that we are now grieving.
yes, yes,
This was my struggle in the beginning.
yes,
People didn't understand that I needed to grieve. I had just lost my whole life. I lost the person that I thought I was. I was a mother. I had a career. I was all of these things. I was a volunteer for Athletics Canada. I did all the things that I did. And so people now forgot who I was.
yeah,
And I know I was no longer Maria. And so
yeah.
I felt this grief.
Yes.
And, so it took me a while to, in truth, I would say it took me about 3 years to get back to me.
Wow.
Even in the hospital, I still had my sense of humor. I was still the same person. I remember the person coming in and asking me what I wanted for dinner, and I told them that I wanted oxtail rice and peas.
Good girl. I want oxtail today.
He was a Jamaican guy, and I was joking with him. And then when they brought me food, it was not what I requested, of course, because that.
No oxtail.
But there was no seasoning. So I said to him, "Is there an embargo on seasoning in the hospital?" Because I was exactly still the same person. And my coworkers that were visiting me, they were like, "Your sense of humor is still there. You're still the same person." And I never lost myself. But what I lost was people connecting with me.
Yeah.
I had people that I had known for 40 years who didn't even visit me in the hospital, who didn't call me, because I still had my cell phone.
Yeah.
And who never connected with me, and to this day really have not connected with me. And that's okay, because I realize that there are people in your life for a reason, a season, a lifetime. And this part of the journey, they're not meant to be here.
Yeah. I think
I had to accept that.
Exactly. I think you're right. I want to talk about that grieving part though, because we do that. And I don't think the counseling world knows yet how to help us with that grieving. And I think we have to do it alone. And we make mistakes, we grieve, we get angry, we get critical. In this relationship loss, we say things we shouldn't say, because but it's all part of our grieving,
Absolutely.
And so because nobody knows how to help us, the counselor doesn't know how to look at it.
Well,
you're grieving.
I was fortunate that at the time I was living with my boyfriend in Whitby, and there was actually a trauma counselor, and I went to see her because I knew that this was a trauma in my life. I had just lost everything that I was 46. So, and I know everybody's calculating now how old is she now.
You look great, girl.
And people didn't understand that I was grieving. My partner at the time, he didn't understand that I was grieving. And so I would get angry, but I was not angry at him. I was angry at the situation because I had an expectation that of the life we were going to have together because we had just decided we were just moving in together. So in fact, the moving truck was coming June 25th and I had a stroke on June 12th.
Oh, good
So
Lord.
I left the hospital and went to the house, and he had had this house built. So at the time we had before the house before the stroke, we had discussed whether oh we should get a bungalow or all these things, but we ended up getting a regular house, 2-story. He had bought this house. I was moving in with him because my daughter was my youngest was starting university. She was going to be living in residence, and I lived in a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. So it made no sense to have that when it was only going to be me. And this was the first time in 30 years that I was going to be alone. And so we had decided that we were going to live together.
Yeah.
And so I left the hospital and went home with him. But the issue was that he worked 12 hours a day. And so he felt a guilt to leave me at home. But, because I was still in the wheelchair. And at the time, I was on a waiting list to have a personal health home aid. I was on the 1.5-year waiting list. So I didn't have anybody. So when he came home, he would have to assist me.
Yes.
He would cook for me. He would have to, after working 12 hours, and he did a manual labor job. And so after working a hard day, he had to come home and do that, cook dinner, and then help me upstairs, and then shower me. So he became my caregiver. And so that was the difficulty in the shift in our relationship. He went from being my partner to being my caregiver.
Yeah.
And that was extremely challenging because I'm an extremely independent person. I'm still extremely independent now. It's just my nature. And so it was challenging for me to have to ask somebody to do things for me. And if I asked him to do something and he didn't do it the way that I did it, I would complain.
Yeah.
And so, and I didn't mean to say it to say, you're doing a crappy job. I appreciated what he was doing, but I just, I was so used to doing things my own way that it just became an issue for us. And I know, our relationship eventually ended like 8 months after my stroke, but it was not because of him. It was because of me. It was because I was having a hard time accepting all the changes.
Yes.
I was having a hard time accepting the things I could no longer do and the expectations that I had for when we moved in together. Yeah. I thought I was going to be the cook. I was going to maintain the home. I was going to take care of him in all the ways that I wanted to, doing laundry, taking care of things as I thought was what I saw my mother doing, with my father. So I thought I was going to be this person who was going to take care of him, and I couldn't be that person. And so that was very challenging. And so eventually I asked him if he thought maybe it was best that I went to my parents.
Yes.
And because I just felt this guilt, like I felt like I'm taking away from his life. Like he's not having joy.
Yeah.
He's too busy worrying about me.
Yes.
And so eventually I left. I chose to leave, and I left and I went to my parents for a short period of time. And then, you can't go back home because I'm like too old for this. I can't go and live in my parents' home. So I then decided to get my own apartment.
Yeah.
And at this point, I was no longer on this waiting list. So I was able to have somebody come in and assist me with bathing and dressing and all of those things.
Yeah.
And so I could live on my own, but it was
But
a
don't
very hard struggle in the beginning.
but don't you think we should have, I mean, I would so, I mean, one of the things that Jeff and I did together was we talked with couples. And what we found out was that there was a disconnect, like in your relationship. But I think so much that the hospital needs to start off helping us. From the get-go. They need to say, okay, this is part of your rehab. Who do you live with? Are you living with your parents? Are you living with your child? Are you living with a partner? Who do you live with? Because we need all of you to come to counseling while you're recovering. Because here's the thing is that stroke is hard on everybody. And my husband always said,
Exactly.
everybody, when you have a stroke, the entire household has a stroke. That's just the way it is. The entire family has a stroke. That's
And
just,
all your social circle.
and so we're all in this together. But what my husband used to say, he's like, he used to go around the table when we do peer support. He say, okay, if anybody could take a day off of stroke, who would take a day off? And we all would put our hands up.
Yeah,
And so then he would
absolutely.
say, yeah, and then he would say to us, he'd say, look at your caregivers need a day off a week. They need one day off a week where they're not tending to you, where
Mhm.
they're not serving you, where they're not helping you. But these things we came by ourselves. We weren't taught it. We weren't taught it in
Oh
rehab.
no, absolutely no.
Counselor didn't sit with us and say, this is how it works now. We learn these things by trial and error, by peer support, by talking to people.
Yes.
One,
Well,
one
I
of the
will
things,
say, at the rehabilitation center that I was at, we did have several family meetings where my family came, and and we did have discussions about who was going to do what. But then life happened. You know, everybody had to get back to their life. My sisters are married; they have children. My parents were retiring. So there's just everybody has their own life to live, and so it becomes a struggle because you feel so needy, but
yeah,
yet everybody has to live their own life. So it's
yeah.
very
I think you're right. I think though, I think one of the parts that when I meet with families, one of the disconnects that I find is that we have changed. We are different. We
yeah.
react differently. And families and friends and partners and children don't get that in those initial years. And so one of the things that I do when I talk with families and partners and couples, um, we talk about how different the stroke survivor is, but how to match that with what's going on in their head, you
Mhm.
know. And one of the things, I had a couple in here, we talked for about 3 hours just recently, and he had a stroke, I think last year. And actually, no, sorry, he had a stroke 4 years ago, and they've been struggling. And so this is a wonderful couple. You know, they love each other. They want to stay together. They want to stay married. But one of the things she couldn't figure out was, why does he look so good? But yet he does these many things that don't make sense. And so what I did was I sat with them and I explained to her why he does these many things that don't make sense. Because
Mhm.
as a stroke survivor, I know that. I know that language. We speak a different language. And so I know that language. And I got an email from him probably about 3 weeks ago. And he says, I just want to tell you that sitting with you and talking with you, our marriage is so much better. We haven't had a blow up since
That's
February.
amazing,
I
Jeff.
know we haven't had a blow up since February, but that's what it takes. It takes for us to sit with families and say, look, at your wife, your sister, your partner, your mom has changed. This is what's different about her. She's going to put the lemons in the fridge 4 times a day. She's going to ask you to find her phone 6 times. I used to say this to my husband. Every single day without fail, I can't find my phone. I can't find my phone. I don't know where I left my water. And then one day he looks at me and he says, you need to learn how to train yourself like I have, which is your phone, your keys, and your water has to go in the same spot in the house every single time. And I thought, well, I don't need to do that because I can remember. And then I would go back to the same thing. I can't find my keys. I can't find my phone. I can't find my water. About 2 years into our relationship, I find that he had ice. So what would I do? I'd put my keys, my phone, and my water in the same spot. And so I stopped asking him. But I think how we've changed, that's not being communicated to partners. How we're different but great, how we're different and good, that's not being communicated to our families. And so that's that disconnect, and that's why they get frustrated with us and they don't know. One of the things about me that changed was I would if I said that the t-shirt is blue and it truly is red, my brain locked in that it's blue. And I will argue with you until you are convinced, But, relationship, I am telling you, girl, but I think a bigger part is just we just need to be able to explain how we're more different. I always say to people, I said, part of grieving, which you talked about earlier, Maria, part of grieving is it's like standing on a bridge. The old you is on the one side. The new you is on the other side. And so the old you is saying, that's not me. We're not going. And the new you is saying, I want the old me. We're going to go get her. But nobody's meeting in the middle. And I always say to people, we have to come, the old you have to come and meet the new you in the middle. Because if the old you is willing to accept the new you, then we're going to be good.
I think I was the one struggling with I thought that I was the exact same person.
Yeah.
I didn't think that I had changed at all. But what I know changed was I became short-tempered.
Yes, me too.
I became very direct.
Yes.
And I didn't necessarily consider other people's feelings. Because I was just thinking, everybody needed to cater to me because, here I am. I'm the one that needs help.
Yeah, I know. So I think we're kind of running out of time, but this is the thing, the relationship thing is a ball of wax. Yes. And you and I, we have to talk about this some more because there's so much to relationship after brain damage, after having a stroke, after having an ABI, and there's so many multi-levels and layers to it. So I'm going to let you have the last word.
Well, I'm grateful for everyone that's joined us today. I appreciate it. I hope you've learned something and maybe that can help you and help you and your partner, your friends, your social circle to integrate and understand that basically it's about communication. The more you communicate, the better off everybody gets, in the process, because it is very challenging for people. It's challenging for your friends. It's challenging for your loved ones. It's hard, but, at some point we have to move forward. And, dwelling on the past makes no sense. We're no longer those people. Sometimes I cry about that. I'm no longer that person because I liked who I was, but, I accept that time has passed. This part of my journey is a different part of my journey. And so I have to move forward. And that is what I'm trying my best to do at this point. And we all have to focus on moving forward. We can't keep focusing on the past because the past is gone. So needless to say, you can have a relationship after stroke and you can be happy after stroke. You can,
yes.
Still be loving after stroke. And another topic we will be discussing at a later date is, as you mentioned in the past, Jennifer, is sex after stroke.
Yes.
And needless to say, I'm sorry that Andre couldn't be here today. So people who wanted to hear about traumatic brain injury, sorry that we will have him on another time when he's not so busy. But next week we have Martin Keene, who is a friend of mine who was a basketball player. He is now the general manager of the Vancouver Dragons, and he had a brain aneurysm, and he's going to be on to discuss with us his recovery, his struggle, and whatever the deficits he lives with, and how he overcomes them. So we hope you'll be able to join us next week.